Hi, good day. I hope you had a good day so far. Today we're going to talk about trying out the generative design studies in Revit 2022. And it's been around for a version or two, and it's built on um, Dynamo, but we'll chat about that in a minute. All right, so let's get started. We're going to look at the agenda. We're going to do a little bit of introduction, trying out the samples, looking at the benefits, and then conclude. Right, so as I mentioned, we're going to look at the generative design studies. It's basically a second part of Dynamo. So basically Dynamo is the backbone of these studies, and so all these scripts are developed by Dynamo and packaged in a nice format so that you can use it as a tool within Revit. All right, so let's go to Revit and try out some of these samples. There is a couple that we're going to do, 6 of them. The majority is based on placement of objects, and then the one is the massing item. Right, so let's get Revit open. So I'll, there we go. All right, so basically what I've done with Revit is I have just opened up the school and the advanced architectural sample, just deleted the site, and then just showed the 3D view. Now what I did with that 3D view is I just added a section box so that it just cuts through the roof and showing the third floor of our project. Right, I'm going to focus on this room, and there's the third floor that I'm just going to get to, and I'll just view these two views side by side. Right, so this is basically the area that I'm going to focus on, and there's the little 3D item. Now what I'm going to do to enable these studies, they basically situated under manage, and then there's a create study under the generative design. All right, as I also mentioned, Dynamo. Dynamo is the programming, the visual programming language that you can use to create these sort of scripts. Obviously, that's a different discussion how to do it. All right, so what I'm going to do is just restore this down so that I've got a little gap on the right-hand side. That little gap I'll just open up for these scripts to kind of display. Right, so let's get going. So the first one that we're going to do, if I go create study under the manage tab, it will open up a little box. Now that box I've just, as I mentioned, just placed on the right-hand side of the screen there. Right, so the first one we're going to look at is grid object placement. And we'll work our way down to the bottom. Right, but now all these, as I mentioned, are mostly geared for placing objects. So what I'm going to do in my model is I'm going to just simply go and place a component that's kind of standard in Revit. It's just in this particular template, it's just the student desk. Right, so I'll just kind of place it in the passage there. You'll see it appear in the 3D. Right, so what I'm going to do now is just looking at this study is right, I explored the all right, so let me just go back to the basic study there. It'll pop up the little goodie again. All right, good. So I'm going to go and say grid object placement. I'll click on that item, and basically what it does, it asks me a couple of things to select. basically obviously the name and the method of placement. I need to select a couple of things like the room and the object, and then it's got certain variables that I can edit and it needs to adhere to. Now at this point I'm just going to leave everything standard as is, and then we'll see what we get. All right, so I'm going to select a room. So you just click on select. It'll ask me, select and Revit this particular room. I do. All right, then once I have it, it's got a little tick box there, and so you go on and select the particular items. And in my case, I'm going to select that desk table. All right, and then what I'm going to do is just look at these. All right, so there's a particular distance between each item in the X and the Y, so the horizontal, vertical, from walls, and these are on meters, and then the goals that you can set. All right, so meaning you want as many number of items, so you want to maximize your placement, etc. You can also constrain certain things. Now at this stage I'm just going to keep it simple. I'm not going to constrain too much. As a maybe you want only 10, or the minimum must be 10, or the maximum must be 20 items, etc. Right. Then you've got how many, the generation settings, so how many variations of the tool you need. Now I'm going to just lower it down to about 5. All right, and then I'll say generate. Okay, so now it opens up this outcomes window, and basically it's just you'll see the previous things that I've generated on the left here, but the one that we're busy with is the grid object placement one. So it's got 5 that it generates, so it kind of works in the background, looks at all these parameters, constraints, etc. It takes a couple of seconds to generate, and then it's got certain results. Right, now these results you can actually already select, even though it's only got 4 done, you can actually select them already and place them, so if you like that. Now in our case, perhaps not. So what I'm going to do is I'll just wait for it to finish. It's got a little tick mark. Great. So there's different variations that you can select and look at their details on the right hand side. You can also, so currently we've got 5. Now those 5 items or results have each got a little blue line at the bottom here. So and each one performs in a certain criteria, and maybe doesn't perform as well in another criteria. So you've got an option of viewing these. The criteria sits at the top here, number of objects perhaps, and then minimum distance of the wall. So here you can filter through these items. Maybe you want these 2 top ones, which has got the largest number of items. So you just kind of click and drag over that little area, and it only then filters out the rest that's got lower items, and maybe those are excluded from the solution. Right, I'm going to clear the filters once again, and I'm just going to pick the stock standard one, which is the one that's highlighted here, the blue line. If I click on a different one, a different blue line are highlighted there at the bottom. So this one has got low number of items, but it's got maximum or minimum, well, there's some distance from walls, etc. Okay, so what I'm going to do with this, I'm just going to say create Revit elements. Okay, so it now starts generating the number of items, and 10 or so, or 9. All right, so what I'm going to do is once it's done, I'm going to just minimize this or close it. I can even just just minimize it, and what you'll see is those 9 desks have been added, and you can see they nicely spaced. Right. Okay, so that's basically the idea, is to kind of place these items. Now, all right, so what I'm going to do is going to simply undo, just to kind of undo. These objects obviously you can move around and delete and do whatever. Right, so very handy to kind of place particular objects. And all right, so and then back there, close this. Now, obviously, you can now replace, maybe add a different one, generate the elements again, and then go and place it. Right, I'm going to close this and then return to my drawing. Okay, I'm going to say create a new study, or second item. Right, so this was just placing grid objects, horizontal or vertical grid, okay, to a specific distance apart, etc. Now the next one is maximize external views or internal views, etc. So what that allows us to do is, if we've got something in our model, I'll just kind of move this guy into that area. As you notice, we've got some windows on the outside. So what I want to do with this tool is I want to maximize the view to the outside. So I'm going to click that, study, and obviously it's got a certain name. You can refine that. Right, so it says select elements that you want to use to calculate the view from. So if I sitting at this desk, then I want to view the outside optimally, perhaps optimize. Right, select the window elements that you want to adhere to or have a look at. So as I select these items, you'll see they turn blue. And just note though, if you forget, it's at the top there, there's a little finish button, right, once you've selected the windows. All right, okay, then it says select the room. So I do pick the room, there we go, and select the obstruction elements. All right, so I'll kind of pick the walls here. It's not actually very needed for that, but I'll just kind of pick these obstructing elements as well, perhaps. And once I've done that, maybe there's a little column as well, etc. Right, then I'll go and say finish. And what it's done, it's created or selected all these items. You've got variables, is the X and the Y, which is basically it's going to move this object to maximize the view to the outside, the angle to the windows, etc. Right, I'll also just generate 5 results. All right, so I'll go generate, and again we have a little bit of a wait. Right, the more parameters there are, the more solutions you ask for, the longer this generation process will take. But basically, as I mentioned, a couple of seconds, and we've got some sort of result. All right, so let's just wait. It's busy generating. You obviously can work in Revit while this is generating, so it's not kind of restricting your way of working. Right, so basically it's got some idea. Now you'll notice that each of these have, if you click on this, there's just the X and Y item. Now what I'm going to do is again I'm just going to select. So this is basically the room from the top, and you basically would work position this item to close to the window, and maybe what I'll restrict is maybe just right. So maybe just the bottom there. Maybe that's that one there. Basically the better one. I'd suggest. Well, it doesn't matter. I'll just pick that one rather. Okay, so I'm going to say create Revit elements. All right. So once I've done that, you can I'll somewhat close this. Right. So what it's done is it's moved this object. It was situated over here by the item. So it's moved it close to the outside area, so that it maximizes the view of that person sitting there to the outside. Right, now it's just you can, if you want a different solution, you go back to the generation, or you go back to over there, explore outcomes, and basically just pick a different one if that's not what you would you know, want. So you just kind of pick another one. Maybe I'll just you know, do maybe that one there and say generate. Right, for now. Okay. Creating elements. There we go. So it's moved it back as per my idea. All right, obviously there's certain requirements that's needed. Right, so I'll just kind of move it back to the outside, and let's focus on the next study. Right, so we've done the placement, we've done the movement to maximize the external views. Right, now this guy is randomize the object placement. Right, so basically here, I'm also going to populate this room with certain objects. So to keep it simple, I'll just you know, keep the desk and maybe add a chair. All right, so it's going to just randomize, and it asks me select room. I do. It asks me select the elements that I need to pick. Now you can either select it or you know, select the placement of this drop down. So I'm going to just go and look for the chair, yeah, and then also I'm going to go and look for the desk. So let's see, M_D, there's a student desk. So those are selected. One thing that so in this example, there's only 2 objects that you can place or use in the randomization. Right, it just says select the obstructing element, so which I still need to do. So I'll just pick the walls once again. Perhaps you don't have to do the walls, but maybe the columns is critical because they are on the inside of that room. Okay, so let's do that, and then say, right, let's run or finish at the top there, remember. Okay, so I'll finish that, and it's a certain number of clusters. These are the variables or constraints: random seed, maximum spacing per cluster. All right, so it just randomizes that as well. Number of solutions, let me just say 5 once again, and I'll say generate. And it's now going to randomize these objects. Now it could be arrangements of you know, paintings on a wall, could be arrangements obviously of you know, desks in a room. It's more kind of a gimmicky because it's a randomization, so there's not much thought put in it. But perhaps you just want to, you know, place trees in a you know, in a space, or you want to, you know, place you know, books on a bookshelf or whatever you want to do, and it allows you to then generate that. Right, so it's got those walls that are perhaps overly selected, but you can have a look at 3D. As you can select there, you'll if you zoom into that little item, you can see how many items there are. The one item is blue, and the other item is red. So you can look at those. Now I'll just pick the one that's quite, there's maybe one that's quite dense. No, that one's sparse. We populated. There's one that's quite dense. Right, average distance, total number of items. So it's kind of in between. I'll say generate elements. Right, and I'll close this for now. Right, and as you can see, I've got lots of objects placed in my object, and what I can see there's a slight you know, overlap. So it might be that there's a little tolerance that I need to talk about or select. This object, obviously its center point is in the middle, so I need to just take cognizance of that. And you'll see here is also some of these items are, you know, situated on the border on the outside because its insertion point is in the middle, perhaps. So the insertion point is not into the you know, wall, but you know, the physical objects are. So you just need to take notice of that. Maybe have a tolerance from the outside elements or the obstruction elements inwards, so that it's within that tolerance. Okay, but very quickly you can generate a large number of items. Yeah, so I'm going to undo that so that not to you know, have the objects in that room all the time. All right. Okay, so we've this third last one is the stepped grid object placement. So that's very similar to the first one we did, the grid object placement, but I'll just go through the motions. Again, select the room. Again, the table. Right, it's got certain maximums, the positions, variables. I want to maximize the number of objects, no constraints at this point. I'll just say generate the generations. I'll just say 5 again. Right, and remember now it says it's stepped grid, so it's not perfect grid. It wants to step the grid. Now that could be used for column placement. It could be used for desks so that they can see the teacher. So if you kind of behind the person, you perhaps can't see the teacher well. So the desks get stepped so you can see the teacher better. Right, that sort of thought process behind that. Right, so at this point it's just got the one. Based perhaps on the criteria that we've decided on. So this, for now, I'll just use that and select it. Right, I'll close that, and you'll see there's the desks nicely staggered, and they're all inside that particular room. Okay, right, I'm going to undo that. Right, so second last, I'm going to look at right at the bottom, the workspace layout. The 3-box massing, I'll do at the end. Right, I'm going to open that. So what this is all about, very simple, similar with regards to placement. And again, it wants me to optimize the placement of the desks. Right, so I'll select the room item. Okay, element selected. Right, and then the desk, I'll kind of select the desk once again. All right, so there's some variables. It can be rotated however you want. There's some spacing. These now is in foot, so 10 foot, nearly 3 meters, that sort of thing. Right, there's no switch to meters here. That's defined in the Dynamo script. So if you want to change it to meters, you need to just open this particular kind of program or the script, Dynamo script, and in there go and alter the values. Right, regenerate this script, and then you've converted into meters. Right, that's obviously a different discussion. Right, so here we set the goals, number of desks to be maximum, etc., etc. This is all defined, obviously, as I mentioned, in the Dynamo script, and here you just select the options. Right, I'm going to keep everything simple, similar, and standard, and I'll just make it 5 to generate 5 options for me. Right, some of these options are, the number of desks, so to maximize that, versus maybe, the distance to the exits, maybe the view to the outside. Right, so a lot of factors to consider, and this is what it does now. All the factors that you want to build in, you can, and then it considers all those and then optimizes and gives you a result. Right, let's just see what we get. As I mentioned, I'm just doing 5, which is just a couple, and it also goes quicker. So if you're doing like 20 or 30, you might wait a little bit longer, and but you obviously have different results, more results, so to choose from. Right, you'll have more lines here, so they're very dense. So in this case, there's average distance to the exits, views to the outside, number of desks. So if perhaps number of desks are critical for you, you then filter that out, and you've got the number of desks. Right, so I'll perhaps just use this guy here, or let's use that one. Right, so I'll pick that, and I'll say, create the, oh, it's still busy generating. So let's wait till it's, I'll clear the filters, yeah. Right, so let's wait. It's still generating. Nearly jumped the gun there. Right. Okay, so it's now finished. So there's a couple of options. As I mentioned, I'm going to just focus on those top ones, and it's kind of the same one. So right, so I'll just use that, and also create the Revit elements. And once I've created those, and kind of auto creates it very quickly, it then places them, and I have those on that option based on the certain criteria that I want. Okay, so that's basically the placement tool, right? Or tool set, right? So I'm going to close this for now, this drawing, and I'll just open up just a stock standard template. Well, this is kind of my template, but I'll open that and I'll go to the massing item. Right, so within the massing, this is generates 3 items. Right, so it doesn't have a thing to select. You don't select the room, you don't select the objects, etc. Right, so it's got some optimization with regards to the heights. So box 1, 2, 3 height. So it's only got constraints for box number 2 and 3. Box number 1 can be as large as, well, up to 160. And then the positioning basically is constrained very close to each other. There's some goals based on floor area. I want to maximize and then minimize the surface area. Right, so that's kind of the constraints. There's some floor area minimum and maximums and such. Right, I'm just going to generate again 5 and then say generate. Right, so what it's going to do, it's going to now look at those couple of constraints and develop a couple of options that has the best ratio between the floor area and the surface area. Right, remember the constraints. Okay, so here we can say, right, let's focus on the ones that got a large floor area, and then let's look at maybe the surface area. So this one's got the lowest surface area, so of the 3, and then we can perhaps select that. But I'm just going to clear the filter, and I'll just kind of pick one that looks nice for me. Maybe maybe that the guy over here. There. Right, so I'll use that one, and also generate the elements. It's one that's right at the bottom. The floor area is low, etc. But it's fine. Just want to double check if it created those items. If it had, I'll just need to just change the show mass item, and there's the model in plan. Let's look at 3D and just view those side by side. All right, so there's the little 3D model, the plan, and you can very quickly see what it's done just as a massing item. And obviously this can be, you can now kind of cut your floors in. You can add walls and roofs and curtain systems to the sides, and then generate your model. Right, so it's got certain as a starting point, that's just been generated by the Dynamo script and the generative design tool. All right, so this would have given you a good idea of going through this process. Obviously this is the start if you haven't seen it before, and they'll keep on adding more examples, and the idea obviously is for you to learn Dynamo and then create your own studies. Right, so just with these the ones that we've now done, we've seen there's kind of a benefit in the placement of objects. So most of those, the benefit of those is placing objects. But like we saw in the last one, you can generate your massing or models based on certain criteria. There are plenty of tools out there or examples out there that based on massing, where you basically want to create massing based on objects that are need to be close to each other, proximity criteria, view criteria of your living areas. So there's lots of benefits that can be added to these creation of, say, massing. But the current ones that we've got, the majority is basically placement. Now you can obviously optimize these placements, maybe columns, desks, solar panels, walls, even light fittings on a ceiling, that sort of thing, to stagger them or just to place them normally. All right, so at this point, it's just placing, which is the benefits, to obviously save time. Something like the randomization, you can randomize and place lots of trees or lots of things very quickly, and you don't have to physically go and place those items. All right, and it all just saves time. I think that's the overarching idea, is to save time, and also to have a set of rules in place that you reuse all the time, especially like the massing. You've got rules in place. It's kind of a structured, thought through process, and based on your requirements, or the customer's requirements, you create these massing or the placements and that sort of thing. Right, so this is just an example of these items, but again, the Dynamo tool is the backbone of this. So once you, if you want to get into this sort of idea, go and start learning Dynamo, because that will help you understand where this comes from, create these sort of generative design scripts, and then produce them and share them across your design team. Right, obviously this is to automate the daily tasks that you might have that might take a lot of time. Right, so guys, thank you very much. That's basically the webinar. If you've got any questions, you're welcome to type it in on at the bottom, or contact us in our offices, as you can see there on the right, and we'll be happy to respond. All right, have a good day further. Bye-bye.